Hi guys, Andy here from Bricky's Network. Just going to go over the Bricky's Network running cost calculator today. This is a free tool for anyone that is starting a bricklaying business or running a bricklaying business that gives them a really good idea of what their fixed running costs and operational expenses are for their business so they can make sure that they're allowing for all of their running costs. We can tend to, when we start a bricklaying business, dramatically underestimate what our operational expenses will be, and we can get caught in this bit of a trap of just accepting a too low a brick rate from a client and just thinking that we can work harder and harder and harder and we'll make enough money to make a profit, which is really not the case. You really need to be aware of what your costs are. So let's go through some of these things. This is a completely adjustable tool, by the way. So if you want to change figures, you can change figures around to suit your own business. And that's why it's such a valuable tool. So I've got public liability here of $2,600 a year, which is about right for a small to medium bricklaying business you would be paying that sort of money every year for public liability if you've got a couple of staff working for you. Next repayment in here would be one of the largest repayments that you'd have, which would be a car repayment. So if you had a new ute that was costing you $50,000 or $60,000 to buy, it's going to cost you about ten to $10,500 a year in repayments if you're paying for that. Then you're going to have all the other affiliated costs like registration and insurance and car maintenance. And then of course you're going to have fuel costs that you're running there. So I've got it allocated in here at $5,000, but I might change that because I think $5,000 might be a little bit shy there for a bricklaying business running around and doing maybe you could be doing 100 odd kilometers a day or 50 odd kilometers, 50 each way. So that might be a little bit shy. So I might change that to $6,000 a year. You will get an idea of that and that will average out and you'll be able to work out your own expenses as the year goes on. I've got an allocation there for tolls. If you're paying for highway tolls, you've got to allow for them. They're a business expense. There's trailer registration, trailer insurance, which is lotted in there at $325 a year. Trailer maintenance, $435 a year. Then we've got tool and equipment maintenance of $600 a year. Tool and equipment replacement, there's $2,000 a year. Now you could spend more than that replacing equipment each year, or you could spend less. I would imagine that you will easily spend $2,000 a year replacing tools. Your saw will break down, or you'll need to replace your mixer or some barrows and things like that. That might not happen in your first year, but you're certainly going to average that back out to that, I would think, because there'll be a time when you replace two pieces of major equipment in 1 year. Then you've got tool and equipment insurance of $650 a year. So it's really valuable to have your trailer and your tools insured. If your trailer does get knocked off, it puts you out of business. You've got to have it there all the time. And if you do get it knocked off, you need to spend $10,000 or $15,000 almost immediately just to replace your gear. So it's worthwhile having that. Then I've got an allocation here for phone of $480 a year, internet of $960 a year. Now, the next allocation I've got here is yard and office rental. So a lot of people are working from home. They're not actually renting office space or a yard, but they still work from home and they use an office at home to do their bookwork, and they use a yard or area at their home to store equipment for the business. So you end up using your own space to store things for your business. So therefore the business should compensate you for that, and it should be a business expense. So I've got $13,000 a year allowed for rental and yard space for your office and your yard. And then there'll be some utilities that go with that. You need to run lighting and power and bits and pieces and whatever for an office space for your business. So there's an allocation there for that. I've got bookkeeping in here at $4,620 a year. That there is, if you're paying a bookkeeper, you'll be paying someone 2 or 3 hours a week to do your books, or whether you're doing it yourself after hours or your partner's doing the bookwork, they need to be paid. They need to be compensated. It's a business expense. You don't run a business for free. So you need to be paid for that. Then there's going to be some software expenses, as in Xero and maybe QuickBooks or whatever it is you use for your accounting. You're going to need some software subscription that you'll be paying for every year. And then there's some accounting fees as well. I've got it allocated in there at a couple of $1,000s a year, but it could very well be more than that, depending on the size of your business, or it might be a little bit less. But you'll certainly swallow up a couple of $1,000s in accounting fees pretty quickly when you're running a bricklaying business. In here, I've got your Brickies Network initial first year membership of $2,399. Now, included in that is all of your SWIMs and JSAs and all your compliancy documentation that you need for occupational health and safety. That gives you coverage for all of your staff with all the mental health requirements and the EAP 24/7 helpline for all of your staff. But not only that, all of your terms and conditions for your business written up by the solicitors, and service agreement contracts, so you can put all your jobs into contracts so you're protected if something does go wrong, if there's a dispute resolution that needs to take place, which is valuable documentation that every business should have and a good business practice to be getting into. You're going to spend legal fees of probably $1,000 in the first year, if not more, just setting up your business and your company structure to get it right the way you're going to be trading. So that's going to swallow up easily $1,000. And I've got advertising and signage and sales here of $2,000 a year. So if you're going to sign right your ute, which I recommend everyone sign right their ute, it's the cheapest form of advertising you'll ever get. That'll swallow up $1,500 very, very quickly. And then if you get some signage and some business cards and maybe some shirts printed or something like that, so you look very professional, it's going to cost you a couple of $1,000s minimum. And then I've got a $1,000 allocation there just for some advertising requirements that you might need for staff or recruitment. It's always a good idea to advertise for your staff correctly, and we'll teach you how to do all that at the Brickies Network as a member if you decide to be a member of the association. Then the next operational expense that's a fixed cost that most people just don't even think about is their own wage. It's very easy to think of your business as part of your identity and it's who you are, but at the end of the day, you are an employee of your bricklaying business and you should be paid accordingly. You're actually the hardest worker in the business. You'll be on the tools and you'll be doing all the bookwork and you'll be taking on all the stress and all the risk. You need to be paid accordingly. So you need to pay yourself a good salary. So I've allocated in here that a good brickie that's running his own business should be worth $2,000 a week as a gross salary. So I've got that's in there at $104,000 for the year, and then there's superannuation on top of that because you're entitled to your entitlements that you get as an employee. Your business should be paying your entitlements. You should never actually underpay yourself. And then of course you've got to have work cover to cover you as well for that salary you're earning, and you're the most important person in that business. You need insurance cover. I've also got an allocation here for an apprentice wage, and this is based on $19 an hour for an apprentice's wage, which works out to be $47,661 for the year. And of course, there's superannuation on top of his salary, and then there's going to be an apprentice work cover policy at $328. So those things there are really valuable. When you're running your own business, there's no point in not paying yourself. If you don't pay yourself and give yourself a salary every week, you don't have a true indication of what your running costs are. But not only that, if you want to go and buy a home or you want to borrow some money to be able to buy an investment property, you need to be having a payslip coming in every week and getting your entitlement. So you can do what everyone else is entitled to do in buying a house if they're working on wages for you. So down here, I've got a little area for variable running costs, as in other labor costs that you might have for your business, because even though your fixed expenses are your apprentice and your own wage, you may have casual employees on the books or subbies that are working for you. Well, they're a variable cost. They're not with you all the time, and they change from week to week and month to month. They don't always work full time. So they're not necessarily a full-time expense. However, if you did have someone on full-time, they would be an operational fixed cost that needs to be calculated up here with your other fixed expenses. But here, so I've actually got $80,000 in there for a casual employee, but I'll take that out of there just for calculation's sake at the minute. And as you can see down the bottom, it'll all calculate up to what the cost is here. Now I've got here at the bottom, I've got a 10% margin on top of what all your expenses are with you there, because we don't run a business for free. We run our business to make a profit that compensates us for all the risks that we take on, and we should be rewarded for that. Now, I believe 10% is probably not enough to be making. You'd want to make more than that. You'd really want to make 20%, but I've got it thrown in there at 10% just to give you something in there for a margin. And you can certainly change that around and change that figure around to whatever margin you decide to have, and it will all calculate here. So I've got a little bit of a written here, just what the owner's wage is, because like I believe it's 52 weeks a year, you've got to be paid for your salary. But you're going to get annual leave like anyone else. You're going to get sick days and you're going to get public holidays, and your business is going to pay you for all of that. So, and that's allocated in here, $2,000 a week gross, and that's with a take-home salary worked out on a tax calculator of about $1,480 a week take-home. So then if we head over to these two columns over here, these two columns here are going to tell you what your operational expenses are broken down. So 52 weeks in a year, so it's going to cost you $258,118.48 to run your business over 42 weeks. So breaking that down, there's your monthly cost. This here is your weekly cost that costs you to run your business. This is your hourly, your daily cost to run your business of nearly $1,000 a day. And then this is worked out on a 5-day week. And then therefore you would have an operating cost of $124.10 an hour. But that's on a 52-week year. You don't work 52 weeks. You only work about 42 weeks for the year, because you have 4 weeks annual leave. You've got 10 days sick leaves. You've got 10 public holidays. You've got other inclement weather days when you're not you're not working, because we always have inclement weather days. Either it's too hot or too cold in bricklaying. So your operational expenses are still going to be the same for a full year, and they're going to be the same every month, but absolutely every week your costs are going to be different, because you're working it out and averaging it over 42 weeks. So we've got running costs there of, we need to earn $6,145.68 just to break our even costs with a 10% margin on top. That's $1,229 a day. That's for you and an apprentice. You need to be earning $153.64 per hour. So that gives you a real indication of what you need to break even. But if we relate that back over to here and we pop in a brick rate to work out on these rates here of how much you need to lay every day when you're at work, here I've got it populated in here at $1.50 a brick. If you're only earning $1.50 a brick, between you and the apprentice, you have to lay 819 bricks. With this calculator's telling you that you have to lay it every day that you're working for those 42 weeks. That would be, I think it would be 210 working days for the year. At $1.50 a brick, you have to lay 819 bricks every day. I would say that's an unrealistic target for a bricklayer and an apprentice to do every day consistently. You certainly might have a day here and there where you'll throw in 820 odd bricks, but you're certainly not going to do that every day. So therefore, you're going to have to charge a lot more than that to break even each day. So if we change our costs around in here and we make it maybe $2 a brick, if you're charging $2 a brick, this is not including GST, by the way, this is before GST. At $2 a brick, you still, every single day you're on the job, you have to lay 615 bricks for you and the apprentice. That there, you're certainly going to get those days, 615. But I'd be very, 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 I'd be very, very surprised if you could do that every day consistently between you and an apprentice. When the jobs are tight, they're hard to get around, there's not easy access, there's small panels, you're laying sills some days, you're doing piers and things like that, you're definitely not going to average that amount of bricks going in every day. So that's probably not achievable either. I think that probably if you averaged between you and an apprentice oh, maybe 500 to 550 bricks every day. That's probably a more realistic target. So, I think that would be probably getting up around the $2.50 a brick mark if you were going to be doing that. You're going to be needing to charge that, and that's, of course, that's just before GST. So there's 492 bricks. So that's just for that's for you and an apprentice to run your business costs. So this gives you wonderful power in discussions with your client to say, if your client's coming to you and going, oh, we're only going to pay you $1.50 a brick, you can turn around and say, I can't work for that. My costs are below that. For me to be compliant with all of the requirements I need to be as a business owner, I can't work for $1.50 a brick. I need to, on this particular site, because every site's different, but if you look back and look at a site and go, actually, I think we can only lay 500 bricks between the two of us, between an apprentice and myself, then you're going to be looking at $2.50 a brick. So that's going to give you that gives you a really good starting point for knowing what your operational expenses are with a business. And of course, down here, you can change your calculations again. You might put 3 or 4 other employees in there, and that's going to change your operational expenses over here. But of course, you put more staff on, these fixed costs change as well, because you might have to pay more public liability. You might have another vehicle. You might have more equipment that you need to purchase and replace with more staff. You'll be using more fuel because you're carting around to more jobs. There's certainly other expenses. There'll be other expenses with the staff when it comes to health and safety requirements, but you'd need probably a larger membership with the Brickies network. So there's certainly that gives you some good power to know exactly where you're going with your running costs. And once you've got a tool like this that you can update weekly, monthly, to make sure that you've got your expenses covered, that sort of knowledge is a lot of power with running your business. And therefore, if someone's offering you a job for less than the required rate, you just can say, no, I'm not going to do it for that price. It's not worth it. You may as well stay home and go fishing or go and work for someone else on wages, because we're not here to lay bricks for free. All right, guys, hopefully that information's helpful. You can just go to the website and download this particular tool. If you see this on YouTube or wherever you might see it, you can download this tool and use it for free.